Hello and welcome to The Interview. After the pre-trial hearing of Dominique Strauss-Kahn, the former chief of the International Monetary Fund, one of the lawyers for the woman that he allegedly attacked spoke these words: "All of Dominique Strauss-Kahn's power, money and influence will not stop the truth of what he did to her in that hotel room from coming out." This David versus Goliath narrative will no doubt have struck a chord with our guest today. Lisa Jackson is the director of a new documentary on the HBO channel called Sex Crimes Unit, and she's offered viewers an unprecedented look inside New York's groundbreaking division of prosecutors. She joins us today by satellite from New York City. Lisa Jackson, thanks very much for being with us. What were your first reactions when you saw those pictures inside the courtroom and the images outside?
Unbelievable scrum. I've never seen anything like it in terms of crowds, but mostly it's international press. I think that the American press, while it was present there, doesn't really, well, maybe we get the importance of this, but this is just the American process. This is what we do. I think a lot of the foreign press is really shocked that the words of a hotel chambermaid, of a hotel housekeeper, can bring down one of the most important, influential people in France, if not the world.
Do you get a sense there's even a bit of schadenfreude on the American side about that?
I can't really comment on that. You know, I think that this case is, I don't know if it's a tough one or a hard one, but it's going to be tough on the housekeeper. You know, the charge of rape, the charge of sexual violence is not a charge that's easily brought. There are only 40% of the crimes of rape committed in this country are even reported. So 60% go unreported because there's always this sense that the women have of blaming themselves. There's this perception in the public that the victim has done something to bring this upon herself. So only 40% of these crimes go reported. So the unbelievable courage of this woman, of his accuser, to come forward cannot be underestimated.
Especially as, you know, the defense team is obviously one of the best in the country, and it's going to really play on this concept of reasonable doubt, and that's going to be pretty hard for her and for the prosecution, I would imagine.
Yeah, and unfortunately, during the trial is when in the U.S. we call it the complaining witness, when she will really have it the hardest, because I think they were going to go after her hammer and tongs, and to the point of badgering her and finding any inconsistencies between her testimony in the trial and the grand jury statement. They are going to find anything in her past that is going to, you know, make her a disreputable witness. It's a little unforgivable what they do, but that's what they're being paid to do.
Do you think it's an egalitarian system, though, despite that? I
think we have an egalitarian system. You know, I mean, her attorneys, the prosecutors, the burden does rest entirely on them. They have to make the case. And from what I've heard, she's been an incredibly strong and consistent witness. She told the same story to the outcry witnesses at the hotel and to the chief of security, who then did the right thing, which was to call the Special Victims Unit in the New York Police Department. She's going to need a lot of support and a lot of, you know, they'll probably do a lot of just kind of, you know, preparing her for this, you know, for the intensity of the scrutiny that she's going to be under. But I think that at this point she can't not go forward.
Let's talk about the Sex Crimes Unit, subject of your documentary. There's actually a link between it and the Strauss-Kahn case. What is that?
One of the lead prosecutors from the Sex Crimes Unit, Assistant District Attorney named Artie McConnell, is the lead prosecutor in the DSK case. There are two other senior ADAs that are working with him, but Artie is in the Sex Crimes Unit. He's in the film, and he's been, you know, he's appeared at every hearing. So the footage that I got in the unit is pretty unique. I think it's probably a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that I was given, and it certainly is not going to happen again in the near future.
What do you think, for you, was the main thing that you learnt in making this documentary, if you could put your finger on one main element?
The unbelievable dedication of these attorneys is astonishing. I mean, their humanity, their compassion, and not only the attorneys but the investigators in the unit. One of them says in the film that there is more hand-holding, more connection between a complainant in a sex crimes case than in any other case. Be it a homicide, burglary, anything. That the caring and the connection between the prosecutors and the victim is a profound and often abiding connection. It'll continue for years after the trial. I saw that over and over and over again. Whereas, I'm sure that Strauss-Kahn and his attorney were, purely business.
And that connection with the prosecutors, I mean, that's something that actually comes out in the documentary, because one of them recontacted the main protagonist in your film, Andrea Sanke, who got a conviction, the man who raped her, many years later. I think it was 9 years later. She was urged to pick up the case again.
In many states in the U.S., there's what we call a statute of limitations, and X number of years after a crime is committed, you can no longer prosecute it. Now, of course, with the use of DNA, and the unit in New York, the sex crimes unit, was the first in the country to use DNA to stop the clock on the statute of limitations. In other words, when the assailant is not known, they have his unique DNA profile. So they literally indict his DNA. And that's what happened with Natasha Alexenko. She was raped in '93, and 9 years later, just before her case was going to expire, they indicted the DNA, and 4 years after that, they actually found him.
What other things
so
can...
Sorry?
Yeah. What other progress really has been made through the work of the sex crimes unit?
Well, the laws in this country were pretty medieval into the 70s and early 80s. I don't know what it is in France, but we had a law here called a corroboration requirement, which was unique to crimes of rape. And in the crime that is least likely to be seen by anyone else, the woman actually had to have independent corroboration, independent proof of the identity of her attacker. And it wasn't until the late 70s that law was changed. We have a rape shield law in this country where the victim's past life, her sexual history, if she has one, is off limits when she is during the trial. And before that law was passed in the 80s, a woman's entire history could be dragged into the courtroom. Marital rape was not considered a crime in the U.S. until the 80s. So little by little, we've come a long way actually since the 70s. When so few of these crimes were reported, and now many more.
A couple of things that struck me about the unit. I mean, they're mostly women. Does that say something about society and how it views rape today?
Well, there are 40 senior ADAs in the unit, and out of that 40, there are 28 women. And I don't know if women are more compassionate attorneys. I know observing Artie McConnell prepare for a case, or even any of the male ADAs, you have to be in that unit because you want to. You want to feel that you're making a difference. You're certainly not in it for the money. The hours are long. The crime that they are prosecuting is a tough one. But they know that the crime of rape is an injury and a violation of a woman's. They know that they are one of the first steps in her path back to healing, and they take that role very seriously.
And of course, they're not doing it for the money. They're quite, I mean, I don't know if it's the right expression, but badly paid as far as New York lawyers go.
I don't know if they're badly paid, but they certainly are not as compensated as Mr. Braffman is.
In general, I mean, in this whole case, I don't know if you've followed, going back to the Strauss-Kahn case, if you've been surprised by the differing reactions in France and the US. I mean, a lot of people have talked about cultural gaps. Have you been struck by that?
Mm-hmm. Well, the idea that she would be lying was really never presented as an option, and that opinion was not expressed openly here. I think there was a real understanding of the gravity of the accusations that she was making, and the understanding that she would not be making these accusations unless they were real. I mean, I believe her, and that her credulity was so bashed in the French press, and that his behaviors, and this will be interesting if this comes out in the trial, that Mr. Strauss-Kahn's past behaviors, that I don't want to call it a pattern, but there are incidents in his past that sort of correlate to his behaviors in the Sofitel. And whether or not that is permissible to bring up in the trial will be interesting.
Okay, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us. Lisa Jackson of Jackson Films and author of the new highly watched documentary Sex Crimes Unit on HBO. Thanks for joining us from New York. That's all for this edition of The Interview.